Hey friends, Pastor Bill Walden here with Build Up the Church. Hope you're doing great. This is a devotional word for June 10th, 2024. This is out of the Gospel of John, chapter 20. In John chapter 20, it is discovered that Jesus is no longer in the tomb. Mary Magdalene and some other women went to the tomb to hopefully finish the preparing of his body for the permanent internment. But when they got there, they found that his body was not there. Mary Magdalene ran back and told the disciples. Peter and John ran to the tomb. Peter walked in, didn't know what was going on. John hesitated. Then he went in and he believed, it says. So he's understanding the resurrection of the dead. They go back to tell the other disciples, and Mary's left there, presumably with some of the other women. They may have gone back. But Mary discovers that Jesus is standing behind her. At first, she thinks he's a gardener. And then he speaks her name, and she recognizes that it's him. We pick up the story in John chapter 20, verse 17. Jesus said to her, "Do not cling to me." So obviously she was hanging on. "For I have not yet descended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene came and told the other disciples that she had seen the Lord and that he had spoken these things to her. Jesus said in verse 17, "Go and tell my brethren." He had never called them this before, but now he calls them his brethren. Before it was servants and friends, but somehow now there's a deeper and more meaningful relationship that he has with them. And he says, "Go tell my brethren I'm alive." Verse 18, Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen the Lord, that he had spoken these things to her. Then the same day at evening, so this is that first Resurrection Sunday, later in the day now. The same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews. So these guys are afraid, and understandably so. The Jewish leadership arranged to convince Rome to kill Jesus. And so they had fled at his arrest in Gethsemane. And they've been hiding, and they've been afraid. They were assembled there, and Jesus came and stood in the midst and said to them, "Peace be with you." So Jesus was not limited in his glorified body. Closed doors and windows couldn't keep him out. He appeared there before them. He offers them peace. When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. So again he said to them, "Peace to you. As the Father has sent me, I also send you." And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven them. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained." In this first meeting, Jesus says peace to them twice. They had forsaken him. They had fled. They had run for their own safety, for their own lives. He doesn't appear to them and start scolding them. He doesn't come to them and start complaining about how difficult it was to be alone. Only John the Apostle was there when Jesus was on the cross. All the others had run away. He doesn't come and rebuke them. He calls them brethren, and he says, "Peace to you." And then he says, "As the Father has sent me, I'm going to send you." The beautiful takeaway in this for me is this idea that they had been with him. They had forsaken a lot to follow him. He had empowered them. They had gone out on preaching and healing missions and had done miraculous things. They had stood with him when he was being questioned by the Jewish authorities and interrogated and accused of many things. They had stood by him, but they finally came to their limit there at the Garden of Gethsemane, when they saw a large contingent of Roman soldiers and Jewish temple guards there to arrest Jesus, probably in the hundreds. And Jesus, when meeting Judas and that group of people, had said, "Let these others go." And so they left. They escaped. They were fearful. They failed him. They didn't stand with him. Peter had said, "Even if the others deny you, I will never deny you." And Jesus said, before the cock crows in the morning, you'll deny me 3 times. And that happened. These guys had failed Jesus. And yet he comes back to them in his resurrection body and he says, "Peace to you. Shalom. All is well. Not only is all well, but I'm going to send you. As the Father has sent me with this message of the gospel, I'm going to send you. And then he breathed on them the Holy Spirit, and they were born again at that moment. Their soul was converted. The Spirit of God came upon them and came within them. And now they had the power of God to carry out this mission. The takeaway for me is this: God uses failures. When we fail, if we turn back, God will use us. The difference between King Saul in the Old Testament and King David, they both failed many times, but David always repented, and he was called a man after God's own heart. If you're a Christian and you failed, I shouldn't say if you failed, let me put it this way. If you're a Christian and since you've failed, as have I, turn back to the Lord. Let him speak shalom into your life. Let him speak that peace into your life. And then let him send you out again, and let him fill you once again with the Holy Spirit. So be encouraged. God uses failures. Jesus uses failures. That's all that he has to work with. Some things to think about. Thanks for watching.